What the heart whispers, the ego tries to silence. That quote? It cuts straight to the truth. Because when someone's heart is already falling for you, but their pride refuses to surrender, they start doing strange things. They block you and still check your profile. They stop calling, but somehow still send signals through every quote they post. They act cold, but underneath it all, they're overheating with emotion. They're not free. They're pretending. And the louder they act like they don't care, the more you know they do. So let me wake you up, my friend. You didn't lose them. No, they lost something far rarer than love. They lost someone who was willing to give them the kind of emotional safety they've never known. And the moment they walked away, they didn't walk into peace. They walked into war, a war between their growing feelings and their collapsing ego. And every time they pretend not to miss you, they lie to themselves a little more. Before we dig into what this really means, press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay with me until the end. Because this message isn't just about them. It's about the power shift that happens when you finally see the truth they're too afraid to say out loud. Hey folks, imagine this. You pour your love into someone like water into a cracked glass. It doesn't matter how much you give. It leaks out because they've never done the work to hold something whole. You showed up full, present, honest. But they weren't ready for that kind of depth. So they discarded you like garbage, like love was something disposable. And now they're out here trying to replace you with paper plates and plastic smiles, hoping nobody notices that they fumbled the one person who would have carried them through fire. And here's the lie they told themselves. They said you were too much. But what they really meant was you were too real, too steady, too transparent for someone who only knows how to love in shadows. You made them feel seen. And when people aren't ready to face themselves, they run from anything that reflects who they really are. They didn't ghost you because you weren't enough. They ghosted you because they knew they could never match your energy, and it eats at them every single day. Your silence, it's not absence, it's pressure. Your calm, it's not indifference, it's the storm they didn't prepare for. And while they're pretending to move on, posting fake happiness and flirting with temporary distractions, deep down they know they're already in love with you. They just haven't admitted it yet. And maybe they never will. But their actions, they're already telling the truth. They're panicking, craving, slipping. You don't chase someone like that. You watch, you rise, you remove your energy like royalty walking out of a room, and you let them suffer in the empty echo of what they'll never touch again. So let me break it down one last time for those in the back. You didn't fail. You weren't too much. You were the standard, and they threw gold into the trash because they thought they could play games with diamonds and walk away without bleeding. Now they're in love with a ghost. Your ghost, and it's haunting them. Say this out loud and write it in the comments. I am the one they can't forget. Say it like you mean it. Lock it into your mindset. Let it shift the way you see yourself. Press that like button, subscribe to this channel, and stay with me. Because what's coming next is when we tear down every illusion they've been hiding behind and reveal the storm they're pretending doesn't exist. Number 1. If they keep watching you, it's not over. Eyes betray what lips deny. You can fake a lot of things, my friends, but you can't fake where your eyes go when no one's watching. And if they're still looking, still checking your profile, still lurking in your digital shadow like a ghost that won't cross over, then believe this with your whole chest. It's not over. Not for them. Not in the way they want you to believe. They won't text you. They won't call. They won't say, I miss you. No, that would take courage, emotional honesty, and they don't have that. So instead, they use silence like a weapon. They pretend your absence means nothing. But Every time they tap your story, scroll through your old posts, or replay your voice in their mind, they give themselves away. Their eyes are addicted to what their pride swore they didn't need. Their body is betraying the story their mouth is trying so hard to sell. So let's break this open right now, because I know some of you are sitting there doubting your worth just because they haven't reached out. You think silence means disinterest. You think their distance means closure. But ask yourself, if it's really over, why are they still watching? Hey folks, imagine this. You throw a diamond in the trash. You act like it's worthless. You tell everyone you're better off without it, but you keep sneaking back to check the garbage can. Not to take it out, not to clean it off, just to make sure no one else finds it before you do. That's what they're doing right now. They're not done with you. They're just too weak to admit they still care. So instead, they spy, they linger, they haunt you through silence while pretending they've moved on. But let me say it loud for the ones still playing blind. You don't stalk trash. You stalk treasure. Some of you are still giving them the benefit of the doubt, telling yourself they're just curious, just checking in, just seeing if you're okay. No, my friend, stop romanticizing crumbs. Stop pretending that attention without intention is anything but manipulation. They're not just watching, they're monitoring, measuring, trying to figure out if your silence is strength or heartbreak. And when they see you thriving, glowing, laughing without them, that's when it burns. That's when their fake peace collapses in on itself like a house of lies. Let me scold you a little right now, because some of you forgot who you are. You forgot that you were never meant to beg for closure from someone who couldn't even give you honesty. You let the silence convince you that maybe you weren't enough. Maybe you came on too strong. Maybe you did too much. No, you weren't too much. You were everything, but they were too emotionally bankrupt to afford you. They didn't watch you because they're curious. They watch you because they're suffering. Regret doesn't always knock. Sometimes it just stares at your story and pretends not to care. And let me tell you something raw. If they really didn't care, you would have been blocked, erased, forgotten. But you're not. You're still there. In the feed, in the memory, in the silence they can't outgrow. You were the unfinished sentence in a story they wish they hadn't ended. You were the echo in the room they keep pretending they've left, but secretly return to every night. And I get it. It's hard to accept this when they're silent. When they don't say anything, your mind creates stories. You wonder if you meant anything. You wonder if they're watching just to mock you. But listen, you don't revisit a chapter that bored you. You don't reread a book you don't care about. The only reason they're still watching is because your energy still lives in them. And the moment they see someone else comment on your post, like your photo, laugh with you in a reel, that's when the illusion starts to crack. That's when the panic begins. They won't tell you. Their pride won't allow it. But their obsession, their eyes, their digital presence in your world, that's the confession. So from now on, stop measuring love by how loud someone talks. Start measuring it by how quietly they watch. Because the truth always leaks from the silence. And right now, their silence is screaming your name. Let's be real. They didn't value you when you were available. But now that you're not reachable, you're all they think about. They scroll, they stalk, they spiral, but they won't speak, because if they do, it would mean admitting they lost someone they couldn't replace. So now, let me ask you, how long are you going to sit there wondering if you still matter to someone who watches your life like it's a show they were kicked out of? How long are you going to confuse silence with rejection when it's really just guilt disguised as distance? This is your reminder, your wake-up call, your power switch. They keep watching because you are unforgettable, not because you chased, not because you begged, but because your love was real, because your presence was medicine, because your energy was rare, and they know it, even if they can't say it. So let it fuel you. Let it remind you. Let it lift your chin the next time your mind plays tricks on you. And say this with me right now in the comments. Lock it in like a vow to your highest self. I am the one they can't stop watching. Write it, own it, burn it into your mindset. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that you've stopped being a doormat to their confusion. You're a mirror to their regret now. And stay with me, because next we're going deeper into the emotional war they're losing silently, and why your peace is the weapon they never expected. Number 2. They didn't reject you. They ran from their own reflection. You didn't scare them. The truth you made them feel did. Let's get this straight right now. They didn't run from you. They ran from the reflection you held up in front of their face. You didn't just enter their life. You exposed it. And that kind of exposure, that kind of emotional mirror, it terrifies people who aren't ready to be honest with themselves. You didn't come in soft. You didn't water yourself down. You didn't play the game of pretending. You showed up real, present, focused, and they weren't built for that kind of intensity. They told you things like, "You're too much. This is moving too fast." Or worse, they ghosted you with no explanation at all, and you sat there thinking it was your fault, like you were broken, like your love was a burden. But let's cut through that lie right now. They weren't rejecting your love. They were running from how seen they felt when you gave it. You didn't just love them, you read them. You touched places they didn't even know were still bleeding. And instead of rising up to meet that energy, they shrunk. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into a dusty room with clean clothes on. You don't blend in, you reveal the filth. That's what your energy did. It didn't match their mess, it exposed it. You weren't chaotic enough to make them feel comfortable. You weren't cold enough to justify their walls. You weren't fake enough to play pretend. And so, instead of embracing the person who saw through them, they slammed the door and called you too intense. But, let's be honest, my friend. Your intensity wasn't the problem. Their emotional laziness was. People who thrive in surface-level love can't handle depth. They say they want honesty until you actually give it. They say they want connection until it demands effort. And when you gave them all of that, loyalty, clarity, emotional safety, they didn't know what to do with it. Because they've been surviving off of breadcrumbs for so long, they thought a full-course meal was suspicious. You made them feel things they've been trying to bury for years. Insecurity, guilt, fear. You made them realize just how shallow their connections have been, just how fragile their emotional intelligence really is. You were a mirror, my friend, and when someone's hiding from themselves, they will break that mirror before they ever face it. Let me scold you a little, because some of you are still thinking they left because you were too available or too loving. You've been told that vulnerability makes you weak, that silence is sexy, that detachment is power, and while yes, silence can be strategic, don't ever let this world convince you that real love, full love, honest love is the problem. What scared them wasn't your availability. It was your clarity. It was your refusal to play dumb. It was your courage to look them in the eyes and mean every word you said. People will always fear what they're not ready to become. You were the upgrade, and they weren't ready to level up, so they called you names, or ignored you, or acted indifferent. But underneath it was a heart that knew exactly what it was losing. They didn't reject you. They rejected accountability. They rejected effort. They rejected anything that made them feel like they had to grow. Because growth requires discomfort, and your presence was the most uncomfortable thing they'd felt in years. And now they're out there telling stories. It just didn't work. They came on too strong. We wanted different things. No, what really happened was this. You showed up with depth in a world built on surface. You offered soul to someone still addicted to ego. They weren't rejecting you, they were protecting their small, unchallenged version of themselves. But guess what? That version is breaking, cracking, falling apart, because once someone meets real, they can't go back to fake and feel whole. Every new connection they chase will feel forced. Every conversation will feel shallow, because you left a blueprint of truth behind, and that truth is louder than their lies. So stand tall, don't dim yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Don't apologize for making someone feel seen. That's not weakness, that's spiritual clarity, that's emotional royalty. You didn't come into their life to be tolerated, you came to awaken them, and if they couldn't handle the awakening, that's on them, not you. Now say this with me and drop it in the comments like a final word. I made them see themselves, and they ran. Say it, lock it in, let it burn away every doubt you ever had. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you were never the problem. You were the reflection, and reflections don't lie. Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll dive into what happens when their ego keeps fighting, but their soul starts cracking, and why your calm silence is the one thing they can't survive. Number 3. Their ego is still fighting what their soul already decided. The mind says no, but the body won't stop remembering. That's where they are right now, split in half, torn between the lies their ego is still clinging to and the truth their soul already accepted. Outwardly, they act cold, detached. They post like they've moved on. They talk like they're over it. But you can see it, can't you? You can feel it in their weird timing, in their silence that somehow still lingers, in the energy that hasn't truly left the room even after they did. That's not peace. That's conflict. That's what it looks like when someone's ego is still fighting a war their soul already lost. They didn't want to fall for you. You were supposed to be temporary, a fling, a chapter they thought they could skim through and forget. But then something happened. You didn't just show them love, you showed them truth. You didn't just touch their skin, you reached their soul. And now they're glitching, stuck in an emotional loop where their logic is screaming, forget them, but their entire nervous system is still wired to your presence. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone lights a candle in a dark room. It's warm, it's bright, and suddenly everything becomes visible. But then they blow it out and pretend the darkness is better, more peaceful, less vulnerable. But once the room has been lit, the memory of the light never leaves. That's what you were to them. You lit something inside of them they were never ready to deal with. And now they're stumbling through the dark, pretending they don't miss the warmth. And you've probably been asking yourself, if they still feel something, why aren't they saying anything? Why haven't they come back? Why do they look so calm? Let me tell you why. Because pride is a prison. And they lock themselves inside the moment they convince themselves they didn't need you. But now they're pacing the walls. They're checking your profile. They're comparing every new connection to what they once had with you, hoping, praying, silently begging the universe that you'll break the silence first, just so they don't have to shatter their ego to do it. Let's break the lie wide open. They're not as healed as they look. They're not as strong as they pretend to be, because the heart doesn't lie. And when the soul speaks, it echoes. And right now, their soul is echoing you. In every song, in every scent, in every damn situation that reminds them of the peace they once had in your presence. They try to tune it out, distract themselves with shallow talk and empty laughs. But the body remembers. The energy remembers, their spirit remembers, and it's driving them insane. Let me scold you a bit, because some of you are sitting around thinking they must be happier without you. You're mistaking silence for closure. You're mistaking cold behavior for clarity. But you're forgetting one crucial thing. They're fighting against themselves. And you know who always loses that fight? The one lying, the one pretending, the one who said no with their mouth but yes with every memory that keeps flooding in the moment the lights go off. They look like they're in control, but behind closed doors, they're replaying your words. They're hearing your laugh when everything gets quiet. They're comparing your presence to people who don't even come close. Because once someone feels real, everything else tastes fake. And they know it. That's the worst part. They know it, but their ego won't let them say it. So they stay stuck in the war zone between emotion and image, stuck performing confidence while quietly grieving your absence. Stuck pretending they're winning when the truth is they're breaking. You didn't lose them. They lost to themselves. They lost to the version of you that no longer reaches out, that no longer chases, that no longer apologizes for loving deeply and showing up fully. And the moment they see you rising without them, that's when the regret deepens. Because now it's not just that they lost someone, it's that they lost someone who still had love for them when they turned away. Let me tell you something, stoic and savage. The greatest punishment for someone like that is your peace, your distance, your glow. Because the mind may say, forget them, but the soul never forgets who gave it life. So say this out loud and comment it below like a declaration. I am the one their soul can't unlove. Say it with your chest. Let it ripple through your bones. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that you're no longer caught in their emotional tug of war. You've already won. And stay with me, because next we're diving into the illusions of moving on and how every replacement they run to will only remind them more of what they gave up when they let you go. Number 4. They try to replace you, but only find echoes. Shallow waters can't drown deep memory, and yet that's exactly what they're trying to do, drown the memory of you in shallow replacements. But here's the truth, my friend, it won't work. They can line up new names in their phone. They can go on dates. They can flirt, kiss, sleep, repeat. But nothing will ever silence the echo of someone who touched them at the depth they didn't even know existed. You weren't just a phase, you were the breakthrough. And when someone experiences depth like that, shallow water just feels empty. Let's not sugarcoat this. They're out there trying to replace you. They're searching for distractions, not healing. They're jumping into quick connections with low requirements, hoping something, anything, can drown out the sound of your voice in their head. But distraction is not replacement. You don't replace gold with plastic and feel whole again. You don't go from a real connection to emotional fast food and call it nourishment. Hey folks, imagine this. They're sitting at a crowded dinner table laughing with someone new, but their smile isn't real because behind their eyes, they're still searching for your soul in someone else's skin. They ask questions, but they're waiting to hear your answers. They get hugged, but they're craving your arms. It's not romance they're chasing, it's relief. Relief from the ache they feel whenever they remember what they lost. And some of you are seeing their photos, you're watching their stories, you're stalking their feed and thinking, they look so happy, maybe I didn't matter. But let me wake you up right now, they're performing. Because when you lose someone real, someone grounding, someone emotionally unforgettable, you don't just move on, you drift, you scramble, you fake it. And that's what they're doing right now, faking it. You think they replaced you. Then answer this. Why are they still watching your page? Why do they still pop up in your notifications? Why do they still show up in the background of your energy like a ghost that refuses to cross over? Let me scold you, my friend, because you've been crying over someone who's been trying to replace you with noise. You've been doubting your worth because they couldn't face theirs. You've been sitting in silence while they distract themselves into denial. But here's the hard truth. You don't chase someone who's chasing ghosts. And right now, they are being haunted by you. They didn't replace you. They recycled the fantasy. They looked for your warmth in cold hands. They tried to find your loyalty in the eyes of someone who only knows temporary love. They wanted the feeling you gave without the responsibility of holding it. And that's the curse. They'll never find that again, because what you brought to the table wasn't mass-produced. It was sacred, and they tossed it like trash. You gave them peace. They turned it into chaos. You gave them presence. They ran from it. You gave them depth. And now they're drowning in shallowness they can't escape. And now they're addicted to the hunt, hoping that if they collect enough new faces, enough moments, enough distractions, they'll forget you. But memory doesn't die when it's rooted in the soul. It only grows stronger in the silence. And yours. Yours is carved into their subconscious. You show up in their dreams, in songs, in the silence between conversations when the new person doesn't laugh like you did, doesn't feel like you did, doesn't know them like you did. Because you didn't love the mask. They did. You loved the soul underneath it. And now that you're gone, they're stuck performing for people who only like the mask. Let me say it louder for those still doubting. They didn't find someone better. They found someone easier. Easier to manipulate. Easier to impress. Easier to fake it with. But easier doesn't mean better. It means avoidant. It means unfinished. It means they're still running from the mirror you held up, and it's following them into every new connection. So hold your head high. Don't shrink just because they tried to replace you. Remember this truth. You're not replaceable. You're remembered. And the deeper you touch them, the louder your absence gets. Say this in the comments and brand it into your mindset. They replaced my presence, but not my impact. Write it. Own it. Let it remind you that just because they moved on publicly doesn't mean they healed privately. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your worth isn't shaken by someone else's distractions. And stay with me, because next we're about to unpack why their hot and cold behavior is not confusion, but a confession, and how every mixed signal is proof that you still hold power they can't break free from. Number 5. The push-pull game means you already got in. Nobody plays games unless the feelings are real. Let that quote settle in for a second, my friends, because if they really didn't care, there'd be no game to play, no hot and cold, no disappearing act followed by mysterious story views, no blocking you only to unblock you weeks later, no silence laced with sudden little signs that they're still watching, still hoping, still hurting, and yet they're doing all of it. That's not indifference, that's emotional chaos. That's what it looks like when someone's heart says, stay, but their ego screams, run. You don't play chess with someone who means nothing to you. You don't keep someone orbiting your space if you've truly moved on. But that's exactly what they're doing. 1 minute they vanish. The next they drop a quote that sounds eerily personal. 1 week they block you like you're poison. The next they unblock just to leave the door cracked open. My friend, that's not clarity. That's panic wearing pride as a mask. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone locks you out of the house, but never changes the key. They slam the door, but they keep peeking out the window. They post online like they're thriving, but every move is calculated, curated, choreographed for you. This isn't moving on. This is emotional warfare. And guess what? The fact that they're still playing means you already got in. Not just into their heart, but into their nervous system, into the part of their mind they can't shut off at night. This is what they don't want you to know. The push-pull isn't power. It's fear. Fear of surrender. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of admitting that what you gave was real. Because if they admit that, then they have to admit they fumbled it. They have to admit they lost someone who saw them and still chose them. But instead of healing, they try to control the connection. They push you away to protect their ego. Then they pull you back to feed their craving for your energy. But what they're really doing is bleeding in silence. Because when you love someone but you're too proud to show it, you end up living in the tension between want and withdrawal. Let me scold you a bit, because some of you are mistaking this emotional game as proof that they're in control. You think their silence is strength. You think their cold behavior means they've moved on. But the truth is, people only play games with what they're scared to lose. And if they were truly over you, you wouldn't be on the board anymore. You don't see it, but your silence, your distance, your refusal to play back, it's driving them insane. Because they used to control the cycle. They expected you to react, to reach out, to break first. But this version of you, the one who no longer feeds the loop, you're dangerous now. You're unpredictable. And that unpredictability, that's their kryptonite. Let me break the illusion wide open. This isn't about whether they love you. They do. Deep down, they do. But love alone doesn't equal maturity. And what they're lacking is the courage to drop the performance and show up raw. So instead, they resort to tactics, silence, confusion, mixed signals, all so they don't have to risk rejection, but they still get to feel connection. And it's exhausting, isn't it? For you, for them, for the universe trying to align a love that's being buried beneath a mountain of pride. But here's what you need to remember. If they're still playing games, it's because the story isn't finished for them. They're not over it. They're not done. They're just afraid of what your love demands. Truth. But the game only works if you play. And now, you've evolved. You're done performing, done waiting, done chasing. They pushed, you let go. They pulled, you didn't move. And that shift, that silence, that's when they realize they're no longer pulling strings. They're unraveling. So say this with your whole soul and drop it in the comments right now. I stopped playing. I started rising. Let it hit. Let it sink in. Let it remind you that your piece is the one move they never prepared for. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you're done being a pawn in someone else's pride. And stay with me, because next we're going into the part they'll never post about. How your calm silence has become their private storm. And why every day you stay quiet, their internal war gets louder. Number 6. Your calmness is driving them insane. The quieter you become, the louder they hear you. It's wild, isn't it? How someone can block you, ignore you, vanish without a goodbye, and yet still feel your silence like a scream in their chest. You haven't said a word, you haven't texted, you haven't posted anything aimed at them, but they feel it every damn day. And the reason is simple. Your calm is doing what your words never could. It's exposing them, undressing their pride, wrecking their illusion of control. Because silence, when it's real, doesn't whisper. It roars. And they weren't expecting that from you. They thought you'd chase, that you'd beg, that you'd send one more message explaining yourself, that you'd show up again, just so they wouldn't have to confront what they did. But you didn't. You withdrew. You disappeared, not in anger, but in alignment. And that, my friend, is driving them absolutely insane. Let me say this loud, your calm is not weakness. It's psychological warfare, and the reason it's working is because they were counting on your chaos. They were expecting your pain to speak. But now, there's nothing. No reaction, no storm, no confirmation that they still matter. And that silence, that space, that stillness, it's eating them alive. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk out of a room expecting someone to come after you. You wait, and they never show. So you peek back in, but they're gone. Not hurt, not angry, not crying, just gone, moved on, at peace. That's when panic sets in. That's when you realize you didn't just lose someone who cared. You lost someone who finally realized their own worth. That's what your calm is doing right now. It's not punishing them. It's awakening them. And trust me, they're checking. Even if they're not showing it, they're watching, wondering, obsessing in silence. Every post you don't make, every message you don't send, every picture of you looking unbothered. It's all hitting harder than any paragraph you ever cried into their inbox. But here's where it gets even more twisted. The longer you stay silent, the louder they hear the guilt, the regret, the what if, because you're no longer responding to their energy. And people like that, people who played you, ignored you, tried to control you with confusion, they can't handle being invisible to you. You were their emotional mirror, their validation source. And now that you're calm, now that you've gone still, they're left with one thing they've always avoided: themselves. Let me scold you a bit, because some of you are still thinking, but what if they don't care? What if my silence means nothing? Let me break that lie. People don't go cold on someone they don't care about. They go cold on someone who made them feel too much. And now they're sitting in the fallout of what they walked away from, wondering if you've finally moved on. Your silence? It's the proof they never expected. Proof that you're no longer entertaining their drama, no longer feeding their ego, no longer available to be emotionally manipulated. And guess what? That terrifies them, because once someone like you goes quiet, really quiet, not the fake "I'm fine" kind, but the deep, stoic, calm kind, it means the power has shifted. They no longer have control over how you feel. They no longer know where they stand, and that's why they're spiraling. They used to measure their worth by your reaction. But now, there's nothing, and that nothing is louder than any argument you ever had. It's louder than any "I miss you" text they were hoping you'd send. It's louder than their games, their rebound, their posts, their pride. You don't have to clap back. You don't have to prove anything. Your calm is the consequence. So breathe, stay centered, keep glowing, because silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of strength. And you, my friend, are no longer available for emotional chaos. You've evolved, you've shifted, you've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't chase closure. You become it. Now say this and drop it in the comments like a declaration. My silence is their storm. Let it sink in. Let it burn. Let it remind you that you don't need to shout to be heard. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that when you go quiet, it's not the end, it's the beginning of your power. And stay with me, because next we're revealing the mask behind their so-called happiness and why their performance is proof of their private collapse. Number 7. Their happiness is a performance. You're the missing role. People post the loudest when they're trying to mute their guilt. Let's not fall for the show, my friends, because that's all it is, a show. The smiling selfies, the rebound vacations, the "I'm healing" quotes, the random arm around a stranger, none of it's real. It's a performance. A highlight reel designed to look like happiness, but built on the wreckage of what they lost. And behind every curated post, every filtered face, and every forced caption is a name they refuse to say out loud: yours. They're not posting because they're thriving. They're posting because they're performing, and the audience they hope is watching is you. Every staged moment is a subtle scream. Look how fine I am without you. But you know what screams louder? The effort. Because real peace doesn't need to be proven. Real healing doesn't require a camera crew. Let's be brutally honest. People who are truly happy are too busy living to document it for show. But the ones who are hurting, the ones who carry the weight of guilt, they need an audience. They need someone to clap, even if it's just them convincing themselves that they're doing okay. But deep down, they know, and you can feel it too, can't you? The tension behind their smile, the hollowness in their eyes, the energy that tries to look forward but keeps glancing over its shoulder. That's not closure, that's regret in disguise. Hey folks, imagine this. Someone burns a bridge, then turns around and starts painting it with bright colors, trying to convince everyone, including themselves, that the flames were art. That's what they're doing right now. They're trying to turn your absence into inspiration. But the truth? They're choking on the smoke. They're just hoping no one notices. They want you to believe they're over it, that life is better without you, that the next person is making them happier. But you can't replace depth with decoration. You can't silence emotional memory with Instagram captions. And you? You weren't just a person in their life. You were a chapter that shifted their entire story, a mirror that revealed their reflection. And now that the mirror's gone, they're performing for a world that doesn't even know the real them. Let me scold you a bit, because some of you are letting their highlight reel mess with your mind. You're scrolling through their posts thinking, maybe they really are happier. Maybe I was the problem. No, you weren't the problem. You were the pause in their chaos, the peace in their storm. You were the one who showed up with real energy, real love, real presence. And now that you're gone, they've filled that space with empty scenes and staged applause. But the soul doesn't lie. And behind every "I'm doing great" is a ghost of a moment where they almost reached out, but didn't. They're hoping the pictures will convince them they're okay, but it's not working because what's missing from every shot is something they can't edit back in. You, your understanding, your emotional depth, your presence that didn't need to be announced to be felt. And the harder they perform, the louder their guilt becomes. That's why they overdo it. Why they suddenly become inspirational, why they post about growth and letting go and new beginnings. Because if they can't silence their guilt, maybe they can disguise it as growth. But you and I both know healing doesn't need hashtags, and real love doesn't die just because you stopped showing it on screen. They're trying to move on in public, but grieving you in private. Every like they get is another distraction. Every post is another attempt to control the narrative. But when the lights go off and the followers stop clapping and they're alone with their thoughts, that's when the act falls apart. That's when the memory of you creeps in. Not as an enemy, but as the one who showed them what love could have been if they'd been ready. So don't let their feed fool you. You're not missing out. You were the moment. And now they're living in reruns, hoping you still care enough to watch. So here's the truth, wrapped in silence, hidden behind their pride, and buried beneath every fake smile. They still feel you. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you stopped. And that silence, it's louder than love songs and longer than apologies. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the version of you that needed to be chosen. If this opened your eyes, like this video, subscribe for more truth that cuts deeper than their excuses, and share this with someone who forgot their worth. Drop in the comments, "My silence says it all." Let them feel the absence they created. So here's the truth. Wrapped in silence, hidden behind their pride, and buried beneath every fake smile, they still feel you. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you stopped. And that silence, it's louder than love songs and longer than apologies. You didn't lose them. You outgrew the version of you that needed to be chosen. If this opened your eyes, like this video, subscribe for more truth that cuts deeper than their excuses, and share this with someone who forgot their worth. Drop in the comments, "My silence says it all." Let them feel the absence they created.